I want to make sure people don't think this is a series of columns that's about the Dahmer case, that these are Dahmer stories for the rest of your life. That's not what this is. These are all of the different stories I've come across, all the different personalities I've come across, and telling the story behind the story. Because you always, as a journalist, you tell a story and you can't help it. It is from your viewpoint, and there are always things you can't say. And this is the time now when I would like to say some of those things.
Hey, welcome to the Scaffidiology Podcast. We are broadcasting and podcasting live from the Pella Windows of Doors of Wisconsin Podcast Studio. And my guest today, episode, I think it was 82, 83, 84, somewhere in there, is someone who has been a now 3-time guest of the podcast, Anne Schwartz.
Don't I break somebody else's record? I think I do. I'm pretty excited
Yeah, you
about
break a
that.
lot of records because a lot of people have been on twice, like the Chef Michael Feckers of the world and folks that you and I adore food, right?
Oh, more
First
than
of all,
life.
if you don't know Annie, groundbreaking book on the Dahmer investigation. You were one of the first reporters on the scene. For folks who don't know you, just give me like a snippet of that. I mean,
Sure.
how that changed your life.
I was the first reporter on the scene at the at the scene of the discovery of the Jeffrey Dahmer murders, which, by the way, is it's 35 years on July 23rd.
Coming up.
So, that's a lot of people go, what? 35 years? How can that be?
And plug your book on Dahmer.
Oh, you're very kind. I wrote a book on the case that came out in 1992.
Right.
But then 30 years later, the publisher, Hachette, said to me, hey, you know what? We think there's a renewed interest in this. There's a whole new audience out there for you, which was wonderful because the first one was a hardcover and there was no social media back then. So I knew everybody personally who bought one. But now this one came out. It's called Monster, the true story of the Jeffrey Dahmer murders. It was used to make a Netflix movie on Netflix. I had nothing to do with the movie, but what I did is I marketed my book as the companion piece. Great if you want to watch a movie, because that's the deal, right? You can make a movie out of anything, but if you are looking for a documentary, that is not it. Take a look at this book, and that if you want to know the story, if you want to know what really happened.
It's a big question, but I want to get it out of the way. So the lessons of Dahmer for all of us who watch true crime and read these stories, watch these movies, these docudramas, which all of these things apply to that story. Mm-hmm. What's the lessons of Dahmer, whether from a media perspective, a writer's perspective, or just crime in general?
Lived trauma is very different than a movie. I think that's important. I think that it's funny because people ask me that all the time, and I always have an answer, but I don't know. Or maybe you make me nervous. I don't know.
We haven't done it in a while because you're also, if you're a listener to my show or previous shows, you were with me for a couple of years every Wednesday doing an hour on local crime,
on public safety stuff.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well respected. People loved it. Shows changed,
sure,
hosts changed, but some of the best radio I've done. So thanks for being part of that story.
Well, I know that the law enforcement loves you in this town, and they remember that. They remember that you were the only local radio host at any place that devoted time to law enforcement. And I know they appreciate that because it's not like everybody's, clawing at the door trying to do that.
Yeah, and you were instrumental in helping me create and brand the Salute to Service month that I do every May. So I appreciate you. I guess I'm always interested in people's next big thing or big chapter. And so that's kind of one of the reasons you're here. So what's your next big thing, big chapter? Annie?
What do you do after Dahmer?
Yeah. Right. Oh, that's still not going to go away. That's always going to be
forever.
there.
That is forever. I could save a bus of children from going over a cliff, and that's going to be the deal. Guess who it was? It was the woman that wrote the story about Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
But
we all get branded in different ways.
But that's okay with me because I'm proud that I told the story. I'm proud that I told the story accurately. I'm proud that I don't get out and do interviews where I'm smacking around everybody. And I'm also very proud of the fact that when I do interviews on the Dahmer case, one of the first things I try to do, you were asking about lessons of the case, one of the first things I try to do is to make sure that people understand precisely what the police involvement was the night that Connor Simpson's phone escaped from Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. It's not as cut and dried as people think it is.
No, a lot of people think it is, but it's not. And that's sort of the mistake we all make. First of all, putting ourselves in the public safety folks' shoes. It's a very difficult job. it changes constantly. And I think the outside influences, whether that's media pressure, media questions, or the public's perception of what they do, always changing.
I think it's because people just do everything from the armchair now.
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness, we always joke in the consulting world that the definition of an expert is anybody more than 100 miles from home with a briefcase. Although I think it's probably less than 100 miles.
You're right.
But yeah, people listen, Steve. That's why you're successful, is because you're doing the talk radio piece. You're doing the piece that has kind of showed where people have gone to. Everything is an opinion now, and it is very rare to have a story covered without an opinion. Just by the fact that the local TV or newspaper shine a light on a story and decide to do that story, it's already taking the objectivity out of it because you decided to do the story. So I've loved my time in journalism. I worked at the newspaper when I broke the Dahmer story. I worked in TV, which was educational, but not really great. I never got over Ethel from the South Side calling in and saying,
Right.
"Tell her she shouldn't wear a red. She looks cheap."
Yeah, local TV, people are strong critics of everything how you look, what you wear, how you dress.
Wow, do you have to have a tough skin
especially
to
for
do
a
that.
woman too, especially at that time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and God help you when you age. So I went when I left broadcast, I went back to print for a little bit. But I went back to print at the time. I went to the Waukesha Freeman, and it was just when something called GM Today was coming out, which was, I think they were early on anyway in that online
Right.
news operation, and I felt like we were losing something by putting the news online. Now, look, I'm not, again, my father was the guy that said, "I can't believe you have a job in TV. That's just a fad. Go find a real job." And now here I am talking about, when I saw things going online, when I saw the news being delivered that way, I just shuddered. I said, I don't think I can be part of this anymore. So I left and went on to do other jobs. I, of course, became the spokesperson for the Milwaukee Police Department, worked for the Department
Haggerty.
of Justice. I've done contract work for the State Department. I've loved all of those roles, and they all have something in common. I get to be a storyteller in all of those roles.
Your newest venture, tell me about it.
Doing a Substack column.
Yeah.
Substack, I'm surprised at how many people are saying, "I don't know what that is," or "What took you so long?" So, but Substack is a long-form online platform for people that like to read, and I think people who like to write. It is not the quick hit of Facebook or Instagram or X or any of those things.
Do you not like those platforms?
They're a fact of life for the people that I do work for.
Yeah.
So when I still work with law enforcement, I tell them that Facebook and Instagram are the best way, and X.
When done correctly. 'Cause
when done correctly,
you and I
it's
both know
a
they make
great way
mistakes.
to engage with your community.
Yeah.
It is a great way to stay engaged with your community. It's a great way to get information out quickly if that's something that you need to do. By the time you call all the stations, you can put it out one place. So I've been thinking about writing something else. Everyone always says, "What is the next book?"
Yeah.
And I would say, "Well, I don't know who's going to kill somebody in a really big way next." I had an interest out east to write something on the Gilgo Beach serial killer, but I wasn't there.
Fascinating
It didn't
story.
happen. It is fascinating, but it didn't happen in my city where I grew up. I wasn't directly involved. I didn't know the players. It just was not, it didn't speak to me like that. So I came up with the idea. My publisher really did. She said, "I'd love for you to think about a memoir." And I said, "That is a great idea. Do you know how many people would have to die before I could publish that thing?"
Right. Yeah. I
and
can't say this. I can't say that. I can't say that.
Well, yes. And so I thought, what could it be? And then I just kind of started writing. I started writing the first column. The column is called Explain Yourself, because that is my mantra in everything that I do. I'm always telling people, explain yourself. If you have an opinion that's different, explain yourself. Or most important, if you're at law enforcement and something awful has just happened, explain yourself. Don't just not say anything at all because that's the inclination. And then I also do that with a lot of my legal clients, a lot of law firms that I work with. We say, explain yourself. Don't just say don't say anything to your client. There is always a way to speak. So I started the column out by saying that, people have been asking me for a lot of years to talk about what I've learned in the whether it was in policing or when I worked in criminal justice or worked as a reporter. Any of those places, there are great stories. I'm the last guy that wants to. Actually, I should say that I'm the first person who wants to sit and hear cops sit at a bar and tell stories. I will listen all night long. I'll be the last person sitting there.
So if I'm watching this podcast and I'm hearing about your new venture, why would I want to read it?
It really is. First of all, I hope it's good writing. I hope people feel like they
You've
still
always been a great writer.
Enjoy writing. Well, it's hard to tell if do people still like to read audiobooks? I am selling more audiobooks than I am paperback books of the Dahmer case.
In your voice?
In my voice.
Oh,
yeah.
very cool.
Oh yeah. I really would love for my better half, for Mark, to listen to it, but he said 5 hours in the car.
Right.
Really?
He lives with you.
I already got that.
He lives with you.
He lives with me, so. But I just felt like while we seem to be going back a little bit to, I don't want to say simpler times, because I don't know that that's what I'm trying to say, but I think that people are in some ways not wanting to automate so much, not wanting everything to be digitized. Now, Substack is an online platform,
Right.
but it is. It's writing, and it's about an average of the size of article that I used to write when I worked for the newspapers, maybe even longer. And people go to that platform because they say, I want to read a story, and then they want to comment on it. And it's very rare that somebody, puts a comment on there that says, I always thought you were a jerk.
Give me an example of something you're thinking about writing about, or something you just finished writing
Well,
about.
my first column is going to come out. I've got something on there now which tells people what it is,
Right.
which is essentially the years of watching a lot of human behavior in whether it's criminal justice or whatever it might be. It's crime stories, but it's not, guy does this and then this. It is the human behavior that I've witnessed, whether it is the people involved, the victims, whether it's the suspects, whether it's the police, whether it is lawyers that represent the police. Those are all different observations, and I think those are stories worth telling. So we'll
safe
see.
to say, describe it as the story behind the story, given all your experience and all the things you've done.
That's what it is, but I also don't, Steve, I don't want people to think that this is my anger management therapy. It's not. I'm not getting out there.
Are you angry?
I am not angry. I am not angry at all. I learned so much in every single job I've had, whether it was Wells Fargo. They're still thinking that was an episode of Undercover Boss, but whether it was that, or whether it was the work that I did with you here, I've loved every single thing that I've been able to do, and I've learned something in every single
What
place.
gets you motivated to wake up every day?
I still love the work. One of the organizations I work with is the Milwaukee Police Association. I feel very strong about that. Very strongly about making sure that that the officers are heard, and have a lot of discussions with them about that. None of the people that ever hired me for work has to worry that this is some kind of a tell-all, and I'm not looking to do that. I mean, what do you think everybody says first thing when I say I'm going to write? Oh, you're going to talk about, the chief and this and that, and I said, that's not really what I'm looking to do. This is not a barn burner. This is not a bridge burner, I should say. This is me giving you a little bit more of a story that you might have read, and you want to know a little bit more behind the story. So my first column, which comes out July 23rd. July 23rd is the 35th anniversary of the Dahmer discovery.
Did you tie it to that specifically?
Yes,
yeah.
I did. Okay. Because I thought there are some things that I've not been able to say about that. There are things that have been said about that aren't true. So, and the more people do these dramatizations. Steve, you were through a mass casualty incident. You know how this goes. Yeah. And for some people, that story gets better as the years go by.
But you learn more. You talk to people who are in and around that maybe you didn't talk to them at the time. But now for me, 14 years later, you learn something about what happened and from their perspective, and it becomes a deeper, richer experience. And as you know, as somebody who covered one of the biggest stories in Milwaukee history, the story never really goes away. One, you're associated with it, and two, for me, I lived through all of that. So that connection makes you unique. So I will always be identified as the mayor of that town when we had a mass shooting. You're identified as the reporter who sort of talked about the Dahmer thing for the first time. That's our realities.
But that's what I loved about your book, is I loved reading about your thoughts while it was happening, because anybody can retell a story looking back at a newspaper and seeing what the articles were or watching back television coverage. But I want to know what Steve Scaffidi and John Edwards and, the people that were really involved, Party Kalika. I want to know what those people were thinking and what else they, how they were feeling about what's got to come next. So this first column will be about that first night when we got to the Dahmer scene.
All right, give them a tease. So for the Dahmer files out there who will be watching this podcast because you're the guest,
yeah,
not because of me, the host, but you, the guest, because I know how popular you are across the world, really, because the Dahmer story went everywhere. What's a little thing that we don't know about that story that you're going to reveal? Just a shadow of something.
What you think you know about what the police did the night they went to Dahmer's apartment is not what really happened.
Really?
So I would like people to read it, if for no other reason than to find out what actually happened. What was the role of certain people in certain jobs that night?
I wanted to ask this question for a long time. We've talked about Dahmer on the anniversary on my old show, and we've talked obviously offline about it a number of times, and obviously because of your book. As you were reporting this, what's your mindset? What's your heart doing? Because that story is nuts for a lot of different reasons. What are you thinking showing up there and having these conversations at the beginning of this thing, knowing what you now know? I mean, that had to be crazy.
So I'm a 20-something-year-old kid.
You're a kid, yeah.
Who is working at the Milwaukee Journal, the largest newspaper in the state, also waitressing, because man cannot live by
right.
Reporting alone.
Where were you waitressing, by the way?
Pardon me?
Where were you waitressing?
Coffee Trader.
Oh, the famous coffee
The
trader.
coffee trader,
Yeah.
absolutely. I just wanted to do stories. I wanted to go out and interview people and talk about things. So to me, I've always had a little bit of a removal from the story rather than an involvement like I see a lot of reporters do now. It was weird when the publisher first asked me to write the book in the first person, because I said, ew, the story's not about me.
Right.
And they said, that's what makes it interesting. And I thought, I don't know. So now we'll see. We'll find out if people do think that my perspective, when a lot of different things have been happening, police-involved shootings, officers that died by suicide, things that have happened with different crimes in this community. What I've learned about that, that's it. And it's free. I put it up there. I also had it was picked up on Facebook by a number of different people, and I know Wisconsin Right Now picked it up. And what I found after that is I've got something like 500 and something subscribers.
Nice, good start.
And it's what it tells me, Steve. That tells me people are interested. That tells me people want to know. But those subscribers aren't all here in Milwaukee or even in Wisconsin. They're people that I've crossed paths with all throughout my life. I mean, you remember when I was working as a contractor for the State Department and I was working abroad. I had a lot of different dealings with dictators, with different prime ministers, with different governments, and working with their police. And there were some interesting stories there that I never told.
When you have these conversations internationally or even in our country, and they start to know who you are, not what you're doing there at that specific moment, talking about public safety and how you're a communications expert, the Dahmer thing must come up. How do you handle that?
Well, I always call it, you'll always end up singing for your supper. So I went to a lovely charity lunch in Chicago. I was so excited. It was going to be like all the fancy people, and oh my gosh, it was a party dress involved. It was great. It was a luncheon. And it was a fashion show, and I'm all excited. So I don't know anybody there, but I had wanted to go to this event that supports Dress for Success. So I got sat at a table with 9 women I don't know, and they're all talking about like Billy Soccer or whatever. And eventually somebody says, Annie, what's going on with you? And there will always be somebody that Googled or somebody that knew or somebody that told somebody.
God bless the internet.
And someone mentioned, they said, didn't you write a book about the Dahmer case? And it was the old E.F. Hutton commercial. Everyone's quiet. And then they're all listening. So all of these nice North Shore ladies, oh my goodness, they're all sitting around the table, and then you become the focus of the the luncheon. So there are speakers and wellness speakers and everything, and these women were like, no, don't worry about that. We just want to hear more stories. So I believe that's still out there, and I believe the stories people want to hear are the ones that I'm going to tell.
All right, so true crime is off the charts popular.
Oh, the
People
biggest
watch
genre now ever.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah.
Is it making us good consumers of public safety or understanding what crime is really about, how it happens, what's the solution?
How big a hypocrite would I be if I said true crime sucks, Steve?
Yeah, right.
I can't say that, and I won't say that because it's not true. I think people have, what I hope that people develop is I hope they develop an interest in finding out how those crimes are solved. I hope they develop an appreciation for the people who are solving those crimes, the story behind the story. There's always more stories than about the victim than just the crime that they became famous for because it ended their life or because they ended up in prison. There's always more of that story. And I think one of the reasons that, especially women, 60% plus, I think it might be closer to 80, I lied, of the true crime audience is female.
Why is that?
I don't know, but when men come to my book signings and they'll say, would you sign my book? And okay, Ralph. And no, I want you to make it out to my wife because she loves to watch all those shows like Snapped and everything. And I'll say, well, sleep with one eye open, brother, because if she's watching shows like that about how women kill their spouses and get away with it.
We got to wrap pretty soon, but I just had this conversation with my wife, Kathy, because she loves these shows and she consumes them. But I always wonder, what's the next thing after that? Because we're learning a lot about serious serial murder cases. I mean, what else can we know about these things? Why do we need to know so much about it? Do we somehow improve our lives or our behavior because we're watching these things? I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I think what happens is people always want to know how or the why. They always want to know why. Ted Bundy gave them a why. He was killing his first girlfriend over and over and over. Yeah. All right. Aileen Wuornos, she was killing her father over and over and over. I mean, that was, a why is very helpful to people because then they can put a bow on it and go on to the next thing. I think people want to know about true crime because they want to say, how can I make sure I don't become like the next victim? Or human behavior has always been fascinating. It's always been fascinating. There's a reason that you can't drive down 94 when there's a car crash on the side of the road because everybody's turning and looking to see if they can see a decapitation or something.
You want to know what's happening.
They want to know what's happening.
Anne Schwartz, the name of the Substack writing, the piece that you're going to do every month, or? I'm going to try to do a couple a month. I'm going to see how that feels. Yeah. I want to see what the reaction is. I still don't know what people think about the writing. I do remember a lot of positive response when I was writing articles for the newspaper, doing articles on television, talking with you on the show. So there was always a positive response. I don't have a reason to think that that's not going to happen now, but I don't know. I don't know because we're back to people reading the written word, which I love as a fan of the written word. Explain Yourself, Substack. Anne Schwartz, tremendous writer, great human being on top of everything else, who's been with my journey in broadcasting and podcasting and everything else since my start in radio 10 years ago. Always great to see you. We got to get you on the show. Absolutely, and I appreciate being here. I don't, thank you. Cool. You can find the Scaffidiology Podcast wherever you get your podcasts or, of course, at my home base, WTMJ.com. See you next time.